God says, "My child, come closer. Be still for a moment. Take a slow breath, because what I am about to reveal may have already been touching your spirit without you knowing why." Last night, while the world around you was sleeping, while lights were turning off one by one and silence was settling into the streets, something shifted in the unseen. A truth that had been hidden behind ordinary walls, polite greetings, and familiar routines finally stepped into the light. Someone who lives right next door to your soulmate could no longer carry the weight of what they knew, what they did, and what they allowed to grow in the dark. Their heart raced, their hands trembled, and their voice broke as they confessed to the police. You felt something, didn't you? A strange heaviness. A sudden uneasiness without a clear reason. Or maybe the opposite, a quiet feeling like something old was ending. That was not your imagination. That was your spirit responding to truth rising. My child, I want you to hear this clearly: you were never abandoned, you were never unprotected, and you were never unaware in my eyes. Even when you didn't know what was happening next door to the one you love, I knew. Even when you questioned why delays kept happening, why misunderstandings appeared out of nowhere, why the connection felt strained without a visible cause. I was already standing between you and what was meant to harm, confuse, or delay you. The neighbor you never noticed much. The one who waved casually. The one whose door was always just a few steps away from your soulmate's life. They were closer than you realized, not just physically, but in awareness. They heard arguments that were never meant for them. They noticed patterns they were never invited to understand. And instead of turning away, instead of respecting boundaries, something unhealthy began to grow inside them. Curiosity became obsession. Observation became interference. Silence became complicity. But hear me, my child, nothing grows forever in the dark. This confession did not happen by accident. It did not happen because the police suddenly became clever. It happened because truth has a heartbeat, and when its time comes, it demands to be spoken. That person tried to ignore it. They tried to sleep. They tried to distract themselves. But guilt is loud in the quiet hours of the night. And fear is louder when it knows it has reached its end. You may be wondering now, was I ever in danger? Listen to me gently. If I had allowed even a single step beyond what you could bear, you would have felt it clearly. I placed limits you never saw. I closed doors you never knew were opening. I redirected thoughts, delayed actions, and confused plans that were never meant to succeed. What could have escalated was restrained. What could have crossed a line was stopped. You were covered, not because you were perfect, but because you are mine. The confession spoke of things that had been happening quietly. Of moments when your soulmate felt watched without understanding why. Of discomfort that couldn't be explained. Of tension that seemed to appear for no logical reason. The neighbor admitted to knowing more than they should have known. To hearing conversations they shouldn't have heard. To sharing words that were never theirs to repeat. And most importantly, to allowing a story to form, a false story, that affected how your soulmate saw situations, people, and even themselves. My child, when confusion enters a connection, people often blame themselves. You did that, didn't you? You asked, what did I do wrong? You replayed conversations in your mind. You wondered if your timing was off, your words were wrong, your love was too much or too little. I want you to release that weight right now. That confusion was not born inside you. Some delays are not denials, they are protection. Some silence is not rejection, it is preparation. And some distance is not punishment, it is intervention. I allowed distance so exposure could happen without destruction. I allowed time so truth could surface without irreversible damage. If everything had been revealed too early, hearts would have shattered instead of healed. If everything had stayed hidden longer, confusion would have deepened. Timing matters, my child, and mine is precise. The confession is still unfolding. Not all details are public. Not all names have been spoken aloud yet. But what matters is this: the lie lost its grip the moment truth entered the room. And once truth is present, nothing false can survive comfortably. Your soulmate does not yet understand the full spiritual weight of what happened, but their soul already feels lighter. They may not have words for it. They may not connect it directly to you yet. But a pressure has lifted. A fog has thinned. A question that haunted them quietly has begun to dissolve. Do not rush them. Do not demand explanations. Do not reopen wounds that are still closing. Let me work. You are not called to investigate. You are not called to confront. You are not called to fix what is already being handled. Your role right now is simple but powerful: remain steady. Peace is your strength in this moment. I know your heart wants clarity immediately. I know your mind wants every detail, every reason, every confirmation. But clarity arrives best when hearts are calm, not anxious. What you need to know will come to you, not through panic, but through peace. This situation did not arise to scare you. It arose to free you. Sometimes, I allow unsettling truths to surface not to threaten love, but to protect it. Not to destroy connections, but to cleanse them. Love that survives exposure is love that can endure reality. And what is being removed now is what never belonged in your story to begin with. Hear me closely now. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not missing your destiny. What was interfering has been exposed. What was hidden is being handled. What was blocking clarity is losing its power. Tonight, when you lay your head down, do not replay fears. Instead, place your thoughts in my hands. Say quietly, I trust you. That sentence alone carries more power than you realize. The story is not over, it is being corrected. And this confession? This was only the beginning of truth stepping forward. Stay with me. More will be revealed, gently, safely, and at the right time. My child, now that the first layer of truth has been lifted, I want you to understand what was really happening behind doors you could not see and conversations you were never meant to hear. This is not to make you fearful. This is to make you free. For a long time, things felt slightly off, didn't they? Not wrong in an obvious way, but uneasy in a quiet way. Like walking into a room that looks normal, yet your heart tells you something is not aligned. Your soulmate felt it too. Small moments of discomfort. Sudden mood shifts. Thoughts that came from nowhere and refused to explain themselves. That was not weakness. That was intuition responding to interference. The person living next door did not start with bad intentions. This is important for you to understand. Darkness often begins as something small, something ignored, something justified. It began with listening too closely. With curiosity that crossed a line. With a desire to feel important in a life that felt empty. They heard pieces of conversations, fragments of emotion, half-truths without context. And instead of turning away, they held on to those fragments. When a heart is lonely and a mind is undisciplined, imagination fills the gaps. And imagination, when fueled by jealousy or resentment, becomes dangerous. They began to form opinions about your soulmate's life without ever being invited into it. They assumed motives. They twisted meanings. They told themselves stories that were not real but felt real to them. And slowly, quietly, they let those stories influence how they behaved, what they said, and what they allowed to continue. My child, understand this gently. Not everyone who smiles at your door wants peace in your house. Not everyone who appears neutral is harmless. Some people interfere not because they are evil, but because they are empty and do not know how to sit with that emptiness. The neighbor began sharing information they should have kept silent about. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But subtly. A sentence here. A suggestion there. A tone that planted doubt. They did not need to lie boldly, they only needed to shade the truth. And shaded truth can be more confusing than a clear lie. Your soulmate trusted the environment around them. Why wouldn't they? Familiar streets. Familiar faces. Routine days. They never imagined that someone so close could quietly influence how situations were perceived. That is why confusion lingered without a clear source. That is why explanations never fully satisfied. That is why emotional distance appeared without a clear argument to point to. You may be realizing something now. Moments that didn't make sense before are connecting. Times when your soulmate pulled back suddenly. Times when misunderstandings escalated too quickly. Times when you felt blamed for something you didn't do. My child, I want you to release the belief that you caused those moments. You responded to confusion that was planted, not created by you. You loved honestly inside a situation that was being quietly distorted. I allowed this to continue only as long as necessary for exposure without collapse. There is a limit to everything, even to interference. When the line was crossed, when thoughts turned darker, when fear began replacing curiosity, I intervened. That is when pressure began to build in that neighbor's heart. They could no longer control their thoughts. Sleep became difficult. Guilt surfaced unexpectedly. Fear of being discovered grew heavier each day. This is how truth works, my child. It does not shout at first. It presses. It tightens. It waits. The police confession was not only about actions, it was about relief. A desperate need to unload a burden that had become unbearable. They spoke because silence had become too painful. And in speaking, they exposed not only themselves, but the hidden source of confusion around your soulmate. You were protected even in the moments you felt unsure. I shielded conversations. I blocked escalation. I softened outcomes. What could have turned into lasting damage was restrained. What could have turned into fear was reduced to discomfort. That was not chance. That was care. Now, something important is happening inside your soulmate. They may not yet know all the facts, but clarity is beginning to replace confusion. Their thoughts are slowing down. Emotional reactions are less sharp. They are starting to question assumptions they once accepted without realizing it. This is the beginning of mental freedom. Do not be surprised if they revisit old memories with new eyes. Do not be alarmed if they grow quiet for a while. Silence is not distance right now, it is processing. Truth needs space to settle before it can be understood. And you, my child, are being asked to do something powerful in this season. Do nothing impulsive. Resist the urge to explain everything at once. Resist the urge to demand clarity immediately. Resist the urge to relive pain just to feel validated. Validation is coming, but it will come gently, not dramatically. I know your heart wants acknowledgement. I know you want your soulmate to see how unfair certain moments were for you. That desire is human. But healing conversations require the right timing. When truth is still landing, pressure only creates resistance. Trust that I am working in spaces you cannot access. What was hidden is no longer controlling the narrative. What was whispered in the dark has lost its power. What was confusing your connection is being dismantled piece by piece. This does not mean everything becomes perfect overnight. Healing is not instant, it is intentional. But now, healing is finally possible because truth is present. I want you to notice something over the coming days. A subtle shift. A softness. A willingness to listen. A reduction in defensiveness. These are signs that interference is fading. You did not imagine the struggle. You did not exaggerate the pain. And you were not weak for feeling it deeply. You were discerning. Hold your peace now. Peace is not silence, it is strength under control. Your calm will speak louder than explanations ever could. This story is still unfolding, but the direction has changed. What was once working against you is now working for your release. And what tried to remain hidden has already stepped into the light. Stay steady. Stay open. Stay trusting. The deeper truth is still coming, and when it does, it will bring healing, not harm. My child, now we come to the moment where truth no longer hides behind fragments and shadows, but begins to stand whole. This is the part where many hearts tremble, not because truth is cruel, but because it changes everything it touches. What was confessed was not small. It was not accidental. And it was not meaningless. The words spoken in that room carried weight, not only legal weight, but spiritual weight. The confession explained patterns that once felt random. It put names to feelings that once felt confusing. And as those words were spoken, something invisible but powerful broke. For a long time, your soulmate lived under a quiet cloud of doubt. Not doubt about love, but doubt about reality. Doubt about motives. Doubt about timing. Doubt about what was being felt versus what was being shown. That kind of doubt is exhausting, my child. It drains the heart without leaving visible scars. And the hardest part is this. When doubt is planted by someone close, it feels trustworthy, even when it is not true. The neighbor admitted to influencing perspectives. Not always with direct statements, but with questions designed to lead. With comments designed to plant suspicion. With concerns that were never requested. They admitted to presenting themselves as neutral while quietly shaping how situations were interpreted. My child, this is why confusion lingered even when love was real. When truth is constantly being interrupted by outside voices, the heart begins to mistrust itself. And when the heart mistrusts itself, it pulls away, not because it wants distance, but because it wants safety. Your soulmate pulled away at times not because love faded, but because certainty was under attack. As the confession unfolded, details emerged that made even the officers pause. The neighbor described how they kept mental notes. How they remembered schedules. How they paid attention to moods. How they connected dots that were never meant to be connected. They spoke of how they felt involved in a story that was never theirs to enter. This is hard to hear, I know. But listen without fear. Not all obsession looks violent. Some obsession looks quiet, helpful, concerned, and observant. And that is what makes it dangerous, because it hides in normality. The confession included moments where your name was mentioned indirectly. Not because you were involved, but because you were discussed. Analyzed. Assumed. Your intentions were interpreted without ever being asked. Your silence was misread. Your actions were filtered through someone else's insecurity. My child, this is where I need you to hear something deeply. You were judged without being known. And yet, even in that, I protected your essence. I did not allow lies to fully root. I allowed just enough tension to bring exposure, but not enough to destroy what matters. When your soulmate began to hear what was really said, what was really implied, and how often outside influence played a role, something shifted inside them. Not anger at first, shock. A quiet, heavy realization. The understanding that many emotional reactions were based on incomplete or distorted information. This is why I tell you, healing begins with truth, but truth arrives in layers. Your soulmate is now revisiting moments that once caused arguments. Replaying conversations with new understanding. Asking themselves questions they never thought to ask before. And in those questions, guilt may arise, not because they wanted to hurt you, but because they realized they may have misunderstood you. Be gentle when that happens. Guilt, when met with patience, becomes growth. Guilt, when met with accusation, becomes defensiveness. I am not asking you to silence your pain forever. I am asking you to allow healing to complete its work. The confession also revealed something important. The neighbor did not act alone in thought, but alone in responsibility. No one else was responsible for their behavior. This means the confusion was not widespread, it was localized. It had a source. And now that source has been identified. This is powerful, my child. Because once the source is known, the mind stops blaming itself. You may already feel lighter. Or maybe you feel emotional without knowing why. Tears may come unexpectedly. Let them come. Release is holy. For too long, you carried questions that had no answers. You blamed yourself for emotional distance that was never fully yours to carry. You wondered if loving deeply made you vulnerable in the wrong way. Now hear me clearly, your love was not the problem. Your honesty was not the weakness. Your sensitivity was not the flaw. What happened was interference. And interference has an expiration date. As truth continues to settle, conversations will change. The tone will soften. Defensive walls will lower. Your soulmate may not immediately say, "I was wrong," but their actions will begin to reflect understanding. That is how healing often speaks first, through behavior, not words. Do not rush to remind them of the past. Let the present heal it. There will come a moment, and it will come naturally, when acknowledgement happens. When clarity is spoken out loud. When emotional responsibility is taken. That moment cannot be forced, but it also cannot be avoided. I am already guiding it. Justice is not only about consequences, it is about correction. And correction is happening in hearts, not just in records. The truth that came out did not come to shame anyone. It came to restore balance. To remove fog. To return choice to where it belongs. And now, my child, you stand at a threshold. Behind you is confusion that no longer defines you. Before you is clarity that will reshape how love is experienced. You do not need to prove your worth. You do not need to defend your heart. You do not need to fight for understanding. Understanding is finding you. Stay grounded. Stay compassionate. Stay open. The truth has spoken, and it is still speaking. My child, now the weight begins to shift. What once felt heavy starts to loosen its grip, and what once confused you begins to make sense in a quieter, deeper way. This is the season of balance, not loud justice, not dramatic endings, but steady correction. And steady correction lasts. You may have expected justice to arrive like a storm, with loud consequences and clear lines drawn in front of everyone. But most of my justice does not shout. It restores. It rearranges. It places things back into their rightful position so peace can return without fear. The confession set many things in motion, both seen and unseen. On the surface, procedures began. Questions were asked. Boundaries were established. But beneath all of that, something more important happened. Authority shifted. The person who once held quiet influence over perceptions no longer has access to the narrative. Their words no longer shape reality. Their presence no longer holds power. That alone is justice. You do not need revenge. You do not need confrontation. You do not need validation from those who interfered. When balance is restored, truth speaks for itself. Your soulmate is beginning to feel safer in their own thoughts. This may look like calm, or silence, or a sudden desire to change routines. Do not misread this. Safety invites reflection. Reflection invites healing. They are noticing how much tension they carried without realizing it. They are recognizing how often they second-guessed their own instincts. And in that recognition, they are reclaiming trust in themselves. This is important, my child, because love cannot fully return until self-trust is restored. Justice is not only about what happens to the one who interfered. It is about what is returned to the ones who were affected. And what is being returned now is clarity, peace, and emotional stability. You may feel a strange mixture of relief and exhaustion. Relief because the truth is out. Exhaustion because your body and spirit are finally letting go of what they held tightly for so long. This is normal. Rest is not weakness, it is recovery. Allow yourself to slow down. Allow yourself to feel safe again. Allow your heart to breathe. I am closing doors that should never have been open. I am placing distance where closeness was unhealthy. And I am strengthening boundaries that will not be crossed again. Your soulmate may become more protective of their space now. More aware of who they listen to. More selective with what they share. This is not isolation, it is wisdom being formed through experience. And you, my child, are also changing. You are learning the difference between patience and self-abandonment. You are learning that peace is not passive, it is intentional. You are learning that you do not have to prove your sincerity to be deserving of trust. There will be moments when old emotions try to resurface. Memories may replay. Questions may rise again. When that happens, do not panic. Simply remind yourself, the source has been removed. What once fed confusion no longer exists in your present. Justice has also brought closure in ways you may not notice immediately. Certain arguments will no longer happen. Certain triggers will no longer activate. Certain fears will lose their power. This is how healing confirms itself, quietly. The person who interfered will face the consequences necessary for their growth and accountability. But that is not your concern. Your concern is the life being rebuilt without their influence. You are stepping into a space where love is no longer monitored, distorted, or interfered with. A space where emotions can exist without being analyzed by outside eyes. A space where connection can grow naturally again. This is sacred ground. I am restoring what was delayed. Not by forcing speed, but by removing obstacles. What flows freely does not need to rush. Trust the pace now. Trust the quiet. Trust the stability forming beneath your feet. Justice has done its work, and now healing is completing it. One more step remains. And it leads not back to fear, but forward into peace. My child, this is the moment where the story no longer feels heavy. This is where what once frightened you becomes a testimony of protection, and what once confused you becomes a foundation of wisdom. The chapter that began in secrecy ends in safety, and the season that tested your heart now releases it. Hear me carefully now, because these words are not just comfort, they are a promise. The danger is over. What lived next door no longer lives near your future. What once had access to your soulmate's environment has been removed from influence, from proximity, and from power. The space around your connection has been cleared, not only physically but spiritually. Peace has been restored where tension once quietly lived. You may notice that breathing feels easier now. That your thoughts settle faster. That your heart no longer feels like it must stay alert all the time. This is not coincidence. This is the result of protection completing its work. Your soulmate is changing, not into someone unfamiliar, but into someone freer. Without constant outside pressure, their true nature is resurfacing. You may see warmth where there was caution. Openness where there was defensiveness. Presence where there was distraction. Let this unfold naturally. Do not measure healing by how quickly words are spoken. Measure it by how safely silence is shared. Peaceful silence is one of the greatest signs that fear has lost its grip. I am placing a new kind of guard over this connection now. Not one built on walls, but one built on awareness. You and your soulmate will sense when something is not aligned long before it can cause harm. Discernment has been sharpened. Boundaries have been strengthened. Trust is being rebuilt on truth, not assumption. This experience did not weaken your bond, it refined it. Love that survives interference becomes wiser. Love that endures confusion becomes clearer. Love that is protected through exposure becomes unshakable. You are stepping into a chapter where love is no longer questioned, but chosen. Where emotions are not second-guessed, but honored. Where communication is no longer filtered through fear, but grounded in understanding. There will be conversations ahead, gentle ones. Honest ones. Healing ones. They will not reopen wounds, they will close them. They will not accuse, they will acknowledge. And when those conversations happen, you will feel something settle deep inside you, a sense of being finally seen. My child, I know you waited. I know you endured silence that hurt. I know you stayed soft in moments that tempted you to harden. That did not go unnoticed. Your patience protected what impulsiveness could have damaged. Your restraint allowed truth to surface without destruction. Your faith kept you steady while I worked behind the scenes. Now I am blessing this connection with peace, not fragile peace, but lasting peace. The kind that does not break at the first misunderstanding. The kind that does not crumble under outside voices. The kind that grows stronger with time. Release the last traces of fear now. You no longer need them. What is ahead of you does not require constant defense, it requires presence. Stand confidently in this new beginning. Trust what is unfolding. Let joy return without suspicion. Let hope rise without restraint. I am with you. I have been with you. And I will remain with you. What was meant to harm did not succeed. What was meant to confuse did not prevail. What was meant to delay did not deny. Your future is safe. Your love is protected. Your heart is at peace. Rest now, my child. This chapter is complete, and a gentler, brighter one begins. My child, even after a chapter closes, there are still gentle words I want to place into your heart, because healing does not stop at relief, it matures into wisdom, strength, and quiet confidence. This is the part where you stop looking back to understand pain and start looking forward to understand purpose. You have been through something that could have hardened you, but it did not. Instead, it softened you in the right places and strengthened you where you needed roots. That is rare. Many people survive confusion, but few come out with clarity and compassion still intact. You did not lose yourself while waiting for truth, and that is why your future will be built on stability, not fear. I want you to understand something very important now. Not every battle in your life was meant to be fought with words. Some were meant to be endured with trust. And you did that, even when you didn't realize it. When you stayed silent instead of reacting, when you prayed instead of confronting, when you waited instead of forcing, you allowed me space to work in ways that confrontation never could. What you experienced has trained your discernment. From now on, you will feel misalignment earlier. You will sense when something is off before it grows teeth. You will not need proof to honor your intuition, you will trust it. This is not paranoia, this is maturity. Your soulmate is also learning this lesson. They are realizing how easily external voices can influence internal peace if boundaries are not protected. This awareness will make them more grounded, more present, and more intentional. You may notice that they speak less impulsively now, listen more carefully, and choose words with greater care. That is not distance, that is growth. Do not rush to return to how things used to be. What is forming now is better than what was before. The old version of the connection carried innocence but lacked protection. The new version carries both love and wisdom. Innocence alone is vulnerable, wisdom alone is cold. But together, they create a bond that can withstand reality. There will be moments ahead when you remember how easily things were misunderstood in the past. In those moments, do not let fear convince you that it will happen again. The conditions that allowed confusion no longer exist. The environment has changed. The awareness has changed. And most importantly, you have changed. You are no longer waiting to be chosen, you know your worth. You are no longer over-explaining, you trust truth to stand on its own. You are no longer shrinking, you are rooted. My child, you are entering a season where peace becomes your default, not something you have to fight for. Relationships will feel simpler. Conversations will feel lighter. Decisions will feel clearer. This is not because life becomes perfect, but because your inner world is no longer crowded by unnecessary noise. I am also removing your attraction to chaos. Situations that once pulled you emotionally will now feel draining instead of exciting. You will crave calm. You will protect your energy. You will choose consistency over intensity. This is a sign of healing, not boredom. Let go of the idea that love must be dramatic to be real. Let go of the belief that uncertainty equals passion. What you are moving into is steady, safe, and sincere. There may be days when your mind tries to replay the past, not out of pain, but out of habit. When that happens, gently redirect yourself to the present. Say to yourself, "That season taught me. This season holds me." And breathe. You do not need to warn yourself constantly anymore. You do not need to stay guarded. You do not need to stay alert for danger that has already passed. I am building something long-term in your life. Not just in love, but in identity. The way you handled this situation with grace has aligned you with deeper blessings. Doors will open for you that require emotional stability. Opportunities will come that require discernment. Connections will form that require trust. And you are ready. What tried to disturb you unknowingly prepared you. Now, I want to speak peace directly into your nights. No more overthinking before sleep. No more replaying conversations. No more wondering what you missed. Lay your head down knowing that nothing hidden remains in control. The truth has already done its work. You may feel gratitude rising in unexpected moments, not gratitude for the pain, but gratitude for the protection. Let that gratitude flow. It will attract more peace into your life. Your future connection, whether it deepens with the same soulmate or matures into its next expression, will be built on honesty, transparency, and mutual respect. You will not have to compete with outside voices. You will not have to question where you stand. You will not have to beg for clarity. This is your new normal. My child, I am proud of how you trusted me when you didn't have answers. I am proud of how you stayed kind when it would have been easier to become cold. I am proud of how you waited without losing faith in love. Now, step forward without fear. Love without suspicion. Live without looking over your shoulder. I am still guiding you. I am still protecting you. And I am still unfolding good things ahead of you. What is coming will not confuse you. It will confirm you. Rest in that truth. My child, let me stay with you a little longer, because some truths are not meant to be rushed. They are meant to be absorbed slowly, like light entering a room that has been dark for a long time. You are standing in that room now. Your eyes are adjusting. Your heart is learning that it no longer has to brace itself. I know something still lingers inside you, not fear, not pain exactly, but a quiet question. A question that asks, how did I survive something I didn't even fully understand? The answer is simple, yet deep. You survived because you were guided even when you felt unsure. You were protected even when you felt exposed. You were led even when the path felt unclear. There were moments when you sensed something was wrong but had no proof. Moments when your intuition whispered while logic argued. Moments when you felt torn between trusting your heart and doubting yourself. That inner conflict was not weakness. It was your spirit trying to stay aligned in an environment that was not clean. I want you to stop judging yourself for those moments now. You did the best you could with the information you had. You responded with honesty inside a distorted situation. That already tells me who you are. Many people, when faced with confusion, choose control. They demand answers, push for reactions, force clarity before it is ready. You chose endurance. You chose patience. You chose to wait rather than wound. That choice spared you from carrying regret later. My child, restraint is one of the most misunderstood forms of strength. Now that the interference is gone, you may feel something unfamiliar: stability. And oddly, stability can feel uncomfortable at first to a heart that has lived in tension. Your body may still expect sudden shifts. Your mind may still scan for danger. Be gentle with yourself as this unlearning happens. You are not broken for needing time to trust peace. Peace is not passive. It is learned safety. Your soulmate is also unlearning. They are realizing how much noise surrounded their thoughts. How many decisions were influenced subtly. How often they reacted from confusion instead of clarity. This realization may bring moments of regret for them, not dramatic regret, but quiet heaviness. If you sense that, do not interpret it as distance. It is accountability forming. True accountability does not announce itself loudly. It shows up as changed behavior, softened tone, deeper listening, and a desire to do better without being asked. You will see these signs. And when you do, allow them to count. I am teaching both of you a new rhythm now, one where trust is built slowly, not assumed quickly. One where communication is clean, not crowded by outside voices. One where love is not reactive, but responsive. This rhythm will feel calmer. Do not mistake calm for lack of depth. Depth does not always roar. Sometimes it rests. There will come a moment when you realize you are no longer replaying the past. When a memory surfaces and does not sting. When a trigger fails to trigger. When a thought that once caused anxiety now passes quietly through you. That moment will tell you healing has taken root. You are not meant to be the person you were before this experience. You are meant to be wiser, steadier, and more anchored. And you are becoming that, naturally, without forcing. I am also realigning your expectations. You will no longer romanticize emotional instability. You will no longer chase intensity disguised as connection. You will value consistency, safety, and respect more than dramatic gestures. This will change the kind of people you allow close to you. Some may fall away. Some may feel distant. That is not loss, that is refinement. What aligns with peace will stay. What feeds chaos will fade. My child, you are entering a season where your nervous system heals alongside your heart. Your body will feel the difference. Sleep will become deeper. Decisions will feel clearer. Your reactions will soften. This is how you know restoration is real, it shows up physically. You no longer need to prepare for disappointment. You no longer need to anticipate misunderstanding. You no longer need to over-explain your intentions. Your presence will speak. I want to speak now about forgiveness, because it is often misunderstood. Forgiveness does not mean minimizing what happened. It does not mean allowing access again. It does not mean pretending it didn't affect you. Forgiveness means releasing yourself from carrying what is no longer yours to carry. You do not forgive to free others, you forgive to free your future. The one who interfered does not get to live in your mind rent-free. Their role in your story is complete. They were a lesson, not a destiny. Close that door gently and completely. As for your soulmate, there will be rebuilding, not from broken love, but from shaken trust. Trust rebuilt after truth is stronger than trust that was never tested. It has roots. Allow time to do what explanations cannot. You may notice that you are less reactive now. Less triggered by silence. Less anxious about delays. Less fearful of pauses. This is growth. This is what it looks like when safety replaces uncertainty. I am proud of how far you have come. You did not become bitter. You did not become manipulative. You did not become closed. You stayed soft, and softness, when protected by wisdom, is power. From here forward, your life will feel more intentional. You will choose environments carefully. You will trust your inner signals. You will no longer ignore discomfort just to keep peace. You will create peace by honoring truth. This will bless not only your love life, but every area of your life. My child, let me assure you one final time in this moment, nothing like this will catch you unaware again. Not because you will be suspicious, but because you are aware. Awareness is the greatest protection. Walk forward now with confidence. Love with calm. Speak with clarity. Rest without fear. I am still guiding you. Quietly, faithfully, constantly. And what lies ahead will not require survival. It will invite you to live.